final week of the regular season. Getting ready for the conference tournaments, but a lot of teams are really looking to solidify their playoff positioning, playoff berths, potential conference championships.
Get seeding to get home playoff berths. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it's interesting because you and I were talking about how crazy the year has been, and I wanted to look back and see if it has been that crazy.
Yeah.
And when you look at the current conference standings, of course, this is entering Tuesday's games. The coaches had it pretty close to right. I mean, you could argue, in the Big South girls basketball, North Gaston was the preseason favorite. They're currently in third place, but obviously, I don't know that people underestimated, and with good reason. Kings Mountain kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
North Gaston and Ashbrook have been very solid combatants for them, but Kings Mountain, this side of a hiccup last week against Burns, has been a worthy championship-winning team in that league.
Certainly.
And when you look at the Southwestern, that was expected to be a dogfight in both races, and Shelby, which is leading the boys, was a preseason pick to finish third, and East Rutherford and the girls is a preseason pick to finish second. So it's not like they didn't come out of anywhere. In fact, if anything, if you look at it, a team that I guess we all probably slept on, in a league that we may all have slept on, was the Southern Piedmont 1A, because no disrespect to how dominant Lincoln Charter has been, and they continue to have been so.
Mm-hmm.
They did lose a game finally, first time in several years on the court. Cherryville was a fifth place preseason pick, and they've got a chance to win that league. So it shows you how they've kind of come out of nowhere based on the preseason coaches' expectation to kind of show that their young, talented players are maybe progressing a year ahead of what their rivals thought would happen for them. I mean, and it sets up Cherryville for really good down the road.
Definitely, and of course, we're doing this taping tonight or Tuesday. Tuesday night, they actually go to Lincoln Charter and have a potential to really potentially steal the conference in many ways.
Sure, and you and I talk about Tuesday night. You're going to Shelby at South Point, and I'm going to Cherryville at Lincoln Charter. And the way those leagues have played out this year, I don't know what our opinion our opinion heading into the game may not mean much based on the way the results have played out this year, and that makes it fun. I mean, it's really been an uncertain, surprising results game after game. The thing that's going to be fascinating to me is I don't see, looking at the records and even the projections, which we had a projection from the high school OT in today's paper. None of our teams are predicted. I think Lincoln Charter was picked number 3
or 4,
3 seeded in the West in 1A. So they're going to have some work to do, but I would argue that the way the leagues have been so competitive, it should at least prepare them for whatever challenges lay ahead. I mean, as we know, if you're in 3A, Cox Mill looms large. I mean, they've only lost one game, that tournament down at Myrtle Beach.
Lost 2 games.
Yeah, but it's hard to imagine them not being the favorite in the Western 3A. So, if you're Kings Mountain or any of the 3A teams in the Big South, that kind of monster looms large. We thought the monster at East Lincoln loomed very large, and then I saw that Friday night, and now if those teams hold serve, we're talking a week from Friday, a South Fork Conference Championship game at Catawba Valley Community College that will determine not only the regular season champion, but a top seed going in the playoffs, because they should tie if they hold on to favorite. But again, it's been an unpredictable year, and it's hard to know for sure if that will happen.
And that's why particularly Friday's games are going to be so huge. Of course, we continue to talk about results on Tuesday. We don't know those as we do this. But you have Ashbrook and North Gaston. That game potentially has big ramifications, especially for Ashbrook, which has Hunter Huss, and we know exactly how unpredictable that is.
Well, that's a dogfight regardless. It's the true throw the records out rivalry cliche, whatever you want to put it. I mean, you saw it last time. You're going to see it again this time. It's one of the most refreshing rivalries every time they strap it on. They go at it, and they're competitive, and then they pick each other off the court, and all these kids have grown up playing with and against one another. It's a really feel-good rivalry because, they want to win as much as they possibly do, but there's an element of respect that exists between those two teams.
Yeah, and should Ashbrook happen to lose or stumble tonight, of course it's going to help North Gaston's playoff chances, but it also puts third place or second place in question for Ashbrook.
A little bit, yeah.
Because especially if Huss happens to win tonight.
Because then they would get the tiebreaker for having beaten Kings Mountain, yeah.
So It would make it very interesting in that regard, in that conference. Then you also have, in Southwestern 2A, we've talked about how unpredictable it is. You have Shelby that beat East Rutherford. East Rutherford came in, you thinking that they were the juggernaut, and they lose to, who was it? South Point. Then they lose to Shelby on consecutive Friday nights. Those two meet, the two teams that won, Shelby and South Point meet on Tuesday. But South Point has East Gaston on Friday night, who's also playing for its playoff life.
Yeah, and won at South Point when they met the first time.
Right.
So, I mean, it's an interesting dogfight in a lot of our leagues, and the competition level has really been good and fun and exciting to watch because we like to think we know a lot about these teams and we do keep up with them, but boy, there's been some unpredictable results this year, and that kind of keeps you on your toes and everybody on the edge of their seat to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, one team that probably doesn't want as much unpredictability at this particular segment of the season, the Gaston Day boys and girls, as well as the Gaston Christian boys and girls, because the fact that they're in the playoffs and any sort of unpredictability is going to likely spell the end of their season.
Sure, and Gaston Christian has had a real breakout year, home playoff game, first ever playoff game for them. They're in the 3A bracket, which could be a challenge for them. It'll be curious to see how the Eagles deal with some expectation, which is tonight. They got a home doubleheader. Gaston Day got buys, so they will be at home on Thursday for a Thursday home doubleheader. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate after, in both cases, disappointing losses in their conference tournament last week. You know, Gaston Day boys lost in the semifinals in overtime. Gaston Day girls lost in the championship game.
I would say that the Gaston Day girls probably came out of that feeling a little bit better than the boys did, because the boys left some opportunities out there. They had a double-digit advantage for much of the game, and then just couldn't keep their foot on the gas long enough. Their big man, Adelakun, got into some foul trouble, and that was really it. They started to really suffer on the boards. The girls, after taking it on the chin the first time against Concord First Assembly, holding them to a 5-point game, that's actually, especially after how they played in the semifinal.
Sure.
Because the semifinal, they looked lethargic. Their coach said it. They were rattled. They came in the second half and really kind of played their ball, but it didn't look like a prototypical performance. They really got back to that Friday night game, although in a losing effort. That actually is going to spell better for them going into the playoffs, I think.
I would think so too. And plus, if you're the Gaston Day boys program, you've got Jakai Belton, John Crump, and Demalade Adelakun, who have all been through being in the semifinals, being in a state championship game. That experience should pay dividends for the Spartans, but as you point out, any kind of off night now, it's pack up your gear time.
Exactly, we're all at the baseballs.
Yep.
But just to kind of go back to the East Lincoln made, because I think that was just kind of the perfect mix and the perfect storm Friday night. Would you think so?
Well, being around some East Lincoln folks, they have played such an up-tempo style, and Maiden really frustrated them by kind of pulling back the reins. If I want to make a college comparison, it's a little bit like Maiden was Virginia to East Lincoln's North Carolina a little bit. If anybody watched that game Monday night, and that, not that Virginia or Maiden are walk it up, super deliberate, but they're certainly slower than North Carolina or East Lincoln like to play. And East Lincoln got some early silly fouls. Kuthin and Dollar got in foul trouble. Dollar ended up fouling out. And if anybody's seen East Lincoln play, those are the two guys that kind of have to have big nights for them. And I've had a lot of big nights. I mean, they're 20-2. They're one of the best teams, arguably the best team in our area. And they just had an off night, and they picked a bad time to have a bad game, and as the old Panthers coach John Fox used to always say. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond to being challenged like that, because I think most of us felt like, particularly after the way they handled Maiden earlier at home, that, you know, the league was theirs. Yeah. And maybe they felt a little too entitled. And Maiden, you know, again, I had a story in today's Gazette about Danny Anderson, 700 wins, an old Gastonia guy. I mean, I've known the guy for a long time, and I did not realize exactly all the connectivity to a lot of the coaches that he was involved with and growing up. And the one that struck me, speaking of North Carolina, I've been around here a long, long time. I never knew that Jerry May, Luke May's grandfather, Mark May's dad, worked at the Gaston YMCA. Wow. So I thought that was really kind of a neat nugget from Danny Anderson, that one of his first coaches, when he'd go to the old Gaston YMCA down here on Wilkinson Boulevard, or Franklin's Boulevard, was Jerry May. So, I mean, I thought that was kind of neat. And then, of course, I did know about the stuff about him being coached by Jerry Green. I think a lot of people probably didn't realize that. He was the coach at Hunter Huss before he went on to become a big college coaching legend at first at UNC Asheville, then working for Roy Williams at Kansas, and then as a head coach in his own right at Oregon and Tennessee.
Right. Well, aside from Hunter Huss and Ashbrook, because we both look forward to that game, just because it's kind of the Duke North Carolina rivalry of this area. What games are you really looking forward to here this Friday, and as we kind of go into the conference tournaments?
Well, it's going to be interesting, and we alluded to earlier. How does East Lincoln handle adversity? Yeah. How does Shelby handle success? They've been pushing the rock up the hill because if you're Shelby, a lot of these guys just left a football stadium, a football field, because they played until middle of December.
Right.
And granted, their conference schedule didn't start till January, but they've been in a bit of a white hot run, and now they finally get to the top of the hill. Can they seal the deal? Because I would presume if they can handle Cy Point, they would take care of business at home against Chase on Friday. But Chase has had some surprising success, or better play than a lot of people expected them to have this year. So it's one of those things where we talk about how do you handle adversity. Conversely, how do you handle the success of a big win and being in first place? And I think you can look, if you look at East Lincoln and Shelby, you get the 180-degree spectrum of that.
Certainly. As for me, I'm really looking to see how Kings Mountain, really the girls in particular.
Sure.
Because we were thinking that they're so good in their backcourt, but we didn't see exactly what type of metal their front court had until it was tested this week or last weekend against Burns, and 31 points later, they lose their first game.
And it also speaks to the future that Thurman Jeter and his program's got. Deshauna Strong, a really talented freshman. I mean, if you would have told most Burns girls basketball fans before the year started, you know what, you're going to beat Ashbrook in their long streak, and you're going to be able to beat, I guess it didn't end on a long streak because they lost the streak earlier, but beat Ashbrook, which nobody saw coming, and knock off a previously unbeaten Kings Mountain team, you would take that. And they've still got some games to play, and Burns has a chance. I think they're right there on the bubble. They've got a chance to maybe play themselves into the playoff, but obviously the future looks very bright for their program.
Definitely, and Forest View's basically in that same boat.
Yeah.
Again, that unpredictability, because Forest View has basically swept Burns and made it look easy in doing so, but Forest View struggled with the top two teams in Kings Mountain and Ashbrook, and North Gaston for that matter. Of course, Forest View plays Forest View plays Kings Mountain on Tuesday night. So that's basically a must-win.
And he closes the season against Carly Womack and Stuart Kramer, she's been the highest scoring player in the area.
Yeah, which again will make things very interesting for us in determining All Gazette, All Star, all that jazz.
Oh yeah.
But any final words?
Just looking forward to see the end of the season. I know the middle school seasons are winding down as well. I mean, keep voting for our Gazette and Shelby Star Players of the Week. Your input has been very welcome this year. We've really enjoyed being able to do that.
Yes.
And give you guys an opportunity to make your voices heard. I mean, it's a good. When we started this, we weren't real sure what kind of feedback we get, and we've been overwhelmed and happy to see that so many people have paid attention and want to have their vote heard. We're certainly happy for you and welcome the opportunity to give you that chance.
Certainly. And look forward to seeing you at a gym near you, I guess soon, baseball and softball parks as well.
Already plotting on spring sports previews, as I think you hear the pound of baseballs and softballs into leather gloves and off in the distance.
Definitely. Well, you have a great weekend. We look forward to seeing you next week.